Chapter 4. I was falling into the sea. Splash! I hit water. But still I fell. Down and down and down through blue-green sunlit layers of water. I'm here, a voice called to me. I am here. I cannot survive much longer. If you hear me, come. If you hear me, come. Suddenly I opened my eyes. I stared up at Jake's concerned face. Glancing across the room, I saw Rachel with the telephone to her ear, preparing to dial. She's awake, Jake said. I'd still better call an ambulance, Rachel said. No, Marco snapped. Not unless we know she's hurt. It's too big a risk. Rachel's eyes flared the way they do when someone tells her something she doesn't want to hear. I'm calling 911, she said tersely. No, Rachel, I'm okay, I said. I sat up. My head felt a little woozy, but I was all right. Rachel hesitated, her fingers just above the keypad. What about Tobias? I looked around the room and saw Tobias spread out on the floor, one wing crumpled beneath him. He looked dead. I jumped up and ran to him. Rachel, Cassie seems okay, and 911 can't help Tobias, Jake said. Rachel replaced the receiver and ran over to Tobias. He's not dead, I said. I can feel him breathing. Then, just as suddenly as I had, he woke up. His enormous brown hawk's eyes opened, instantly fierce. His first reaction was pure hawk. He hopped up and flared. Hawks flare just the way cats do when they're trying to intimidate someone. They hunch their shoulders and fluff up their feathers to make themselves look bigger than they are. Everybody stand still, I said quickly. It's okay, Tobias. You were just out for a minute there. He quickly gained control over the hawk ink snakes. That was strange, he said. It happened to me too, I said. I passed out, and then I had the dream again. Only this time I can hear an actual voice. Or at least, I heard thought speech. Me too, Tobias confirmed. Okay, now this is getting weird, Rachel said, because at the same time, I thought I kind of felt something. Yeah, Jake agreed. Marco nodded. I know this sounds crazy, but it's like someone is sending out a distress signal. Like they're calling for help. Only this someone is in the water or under the water or something, I said. Seeing that video, seeing that writing, it was like suddenly the message grew stronger. Or it may have just been a coincidence, Jake said. This isn't a dream. I don't know what it is, but it isn't a dream. Even I halfway saw something. This is some kind of communication. Well, this is all very interesting, Marco said, but so what? I mean, we are getting some kind of psychic message from the Little Mermaid. What are we supposed to do about it? Jake looked closely at me. Cassie, was the voice in your dream a human voice? I was startled by the question. I haven't really thought about it. I actually laughed. When you asked me, the first thing that popped into my head was, no, it isn't human. I laughed again. But that doesn't make any sense. It's not human, Tobias said suddenly. I understand the meaning of what it's saying, but it's not human. It's not speaking in words, really. So what is it? Rachel asked. Yerk? I let my mind drift back to the dream. I tried to hear the sound in my head again. No, not Yerk. It reminds me of something. Of someone. The Andalite, Tobias blurted. I snapped my fingers. Yes, that's it. It reminds me of the Andalite, when he first thought spoke to us. That's what it's like. The Andalite, Marco muttered. He looked away. I knew he was remembering. We all were. We had been walking home from the mall at night, walking through a big abandoned construction site, when the Andalite ship had appeared above us. It landed, and out came the Andalite prince, fatally wounded in a battle with the Yerks, somewhere in space. He was the one who had warned us of the Yerks, the parasite species that inhabited the brains of other creatures and enslaved them, making them controllers. It was the Andalite who had warned us and who, in desperation, had given us this great and terrible weapon, the power to morph. We had been hiding, clinging in terror when the Yerks caught up with the Andalite, when Visser III himself, the Yerk leader, had murdered him. I shuddered at the terrible memory of the Andalite's last despairing cry. Yes, I whispered. Tobias is right. It's an Andalite. That's who is calling us from the sea. An Andalite. For a few minutes, no one said anything. Then Rachel said, he died trying to save us. She looked defiantly at Marco. I know that doesn't mean anything to you, but the Andalite died trying to save Earth. Marco nodded. I know. And you're wrong, Rachel. That means plenty to me. Yeah? Well, if there's some Andalite calling for help, I'm going to try and help him, Rachel said. I looked over at Jake, and we shared this look like, oh, big surprise, Rachel's ready to go. I hid my smile, and Jake kept a straight face. Tobias, Jake asked, what do you say? I don't know if I should have a vote. I'm the one person here who isn't going to be much help dealing with the water. Besides, you guys all know how I'd vote. Of all of us, it was Tobias who had stayed longest at the Andalite's side, even as the Andalite ordered him to get to safety. Something really deep had gone on between the Andalite prince and Tobias. It was my turn. I can't just ignore someone crying out for help, if that's what this is. We all looked at Marco. I could see Rachel getting angry, like she was ready to jump all over Marco if, as usual, he disagreed. Marco just grinned. I really hate to do this. I really hate to disappoint you all. And then he grew serious. But I was there at the construction site, same as all of you. And I was there when Visitor 3... Suddenly his voice choked. What I mean is, if there's an Andalite who needs anything, I'm there. Chapter 5. You do realize that if we're down here at the beach because of that news story, some controllers are probably down here too. Marco asked for about the 10th time. Yes, Marco, Jake said patiently. But maybe Cassie and Tobias can get some feeling from being down here, closer to the sea. So let me get this straight. We are now making decisions based on Tobias and Cassie's dreams, right? Marco said. And yet my dreams are totally ignored. The fact that I once dreamed about staying home and watching TV in a total safety, that means nothing, right? Right, Jake said flatly. We were at the beach. The same beach where the guy on the news had found what we now believed was a piece of an Andalite ship. It was night, with a sliver of moon that painted ripples of silver across the black water. A salt breeze blew off the water, making me feel peaceful, and get a little overwhelmed, intimidated, the way the ocean always makes me feel. There's nothing as big as the ocean. It's like this entirely different planet, full of strange plants and fantastic animals. Valleys and mountains and caves and broad, flat plains, all hidden from our sight. All I could see was the surface. All I could feel was the barest edge of the ocean, rushing over my toes as each wave crashed ashore. But I could sense it out there. I could sense how vast it was, and how tiny I was. How about my dream of living long enough to get a driver's license? Jake gave Marco an exasperated look. Marco, you can turn into a bird and fly. You could do it right now. Why would you care about driving a car a few years from now? The babes, Marco said instantly. Duh. You can't pick up girls when you're a bird. He glanced overhead, where we could see just a hint of dark wings against a canopy of stars. No offense, Tobias. The wings are great. But I'm thinking of something bright red with about 400 horsepower. Marco's cooperative move hadn't lasted long. I knew it wouldn't. Marco is never happy unless he's complaining about something. Just like Rachel is never happy unless she has something to fight against. And Tobias is never happy, period. He thinks if he's ever happy, someone will just come along and take his happiness away. So Cassie, Rachel said, do you feel anything? Well, I feel a little embarrassed, I admitted, and a little foolish. Maybe we could try calling the Psychic Friends, Marco suggested. Hi, is this Psychic Friends? I've been dreaming about aliens lately. Why Cassie and Tobias? Rachel wondered aloud, ignoring Marco. Why would they get these images so clearly and the rest of us barely felt anything? Jake shook his head. I don't know. I mean, okay, say you're an Andalite and you want to call for help. Who do you want to come and rescue you? Other Andalites, obviously. Tobias isn't an Andalite, and neither am I pointed out. I know, Jake said, but maybe this communication, whatever it is tied to the ability to morph. You know, like morphing ability makes you able to hear it. That way, only Andalites would be able to receive the call for help. Which still doesn't explain why Tobias and I... Maybe it does, Marco interrupted, serious again. Look, Tobias is permanently in morph. And Cassie, you're the one who has the most talent for morphing. Then he flashed his white teeth in the dark. Besides, you know you like animals more than humans, so it's like you're halfway into morph anyway. Suddenly a dark shape swooped low over our heads. Lights, Tobias said. Up ahead on the beach. There's a bunch of people moving in line with flashlights, like they're searching for something. You can't see them yet because they're hidden by that dune, but they'll be here in a couple of minutes. Who are they? Jake demanded. I can't tell, Tobias said. My eyes may be great during the day, but at night I don't see any better than you do. I'm a hawk, not an owl. Fortunately, I still hear pretty well. You guys hide in the dunes. I'll be right back. With that, he was gone. Come on, Jake said. He's right. Let's hide in the dunes. We crouched down in a pocket between two dunes. I lay flat on my belly in the cold sand and peered through the tall seagrass, focusing on the bright line of the surf. Tobias was back in a few minutes. It's them, he said. He came to rest on a piece of driftwood. It's a group from the sharing. Chapman is with them. He turned his head to look at Jake. Tom is with them, too. The sharing is a front organization for the Yerks. Supposedly it's this group for all ages, like Girl Scouts or whatever. In reality, it's a way for the controllers to try and recruit new voluntary hosts. As impossible as it may seem, some humans actually decide to become hosts for the Yerks. The Yerks like it that way. It's easier for them to have a voluntary host instead of a host that resists their control. The sharing is very subtle, of course. People are brought along very slowly over time. New members have no idea what it's all about at first. They think it's just fun and games. I don't know what they tell or when they tell members what's really happening. By then, I guess it's too late. They either become hosts voluntarily, or like Jake's brother Tom, they are taken anyway. Tom is with them? Jake asked. I'm pretty sure, Tobias said. Some of the senior members, Chapman and Tom, are falling behind the others. I can hear some of what they're saying. They're very worried about that fragment of Andalite ship. So it is Andalite? Rachel asked, excited. I guess so, Tobias said. I heard something else, too. The way he hesitated made me tense up. What? Something about Visor 3 having visions. That's what they said. Visions. I guess the visions made the Visor cranky. He was on the mothership at the time and decided to shove a Hork-Vizier out of an airlock because he broke the Visor's concentration. It's because of Visor 3's Andalite body, Marco said. That's the connection. These dreams or visions or whatever they are must be some kind of communication that's only supposed to be heard by Andalites. Suddenly I saw the line of flashlights swing into view. There must have been 20 people strung along the beach, all looking down at the sand, moving forward slowly. They're searching for any other fragments, I whispered. A part of the line stopped moving. I heard someone yelling. Others came running up, excited. What did they find? Jake wondered. I don't... Then in a flash it came to me. Our footprints! 4 sets of fresh footprints that suddenly turn off into the dunes. Let's get out of here, Jake hissed. Now! Too late. The flashlight beams raced across the rippling sand and up the side of the dune. In an instant, a dozen of flashlight beams focused on the notch where we're crouched. We slithered back down out of sight. Then we jumped up and ran. We should morph, Rachel gasped as we stumbled over the sinking sand. No, Marco said. Tracks. We would leave tracks that went from human to animal. Get them, someone yelled. Chapman, I think. He's our assistant principal at school. I knew his voice from hearing him yell in the hallways. Jerky, wild beams of light danced all around us. We ducked and ran as fast as we could, but running across the sand was like running through quicksand. Jake was gasping out whispered instructions. Double around. If they follow us deeper into the dunes, we can double around and get to water and then morph. There, I see them. A beam of light swept over me. I could see my shadow, long and twisted, projected on the sand. I dodged left out of the light, just in time. Bam, bam! Gunfire! Someone was shooting at me. Chapter 6. It seemed totally crazy. I mean, I'm in one-on-one combat to the death with 7-foot-tall Hork-Bajir warriors. And I've been shot at by Draken beams that sort of disintegrate you slowly. But I've never been shot at with plain old everyday guns. It seemed nuts after all we've been through. Bam! 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 I heard something hit the sand just inches from my foot. Ah! I cried in surprise. This was real. Real. This was really happening. A rough hand grabbed me and dragged me forward. Jake. I had frozen when I heard the bullet so close. They're all in the dunes, Tobias cried. Now's the time. Come on, Jake snapped. He half dragged me up the side of the nearest dune, but by then I was moving fine all on my own. I was scurrying up the side of that hill, snatching at handholds of scrub grass, pistoning my feet into the sand. Over the top, we slid and rolled and ran down the far side. We were back on the beach. I stole a quick glance to the right. No lights on the beach. They were all in the dunes, looking for us. Head to the water, Jake said, and morph to fish. Jake, I panted. Trout. They're freshwater fish. This is saltwater. You have a better idea? He asked. Bam, bam. No, I said. We splashed into the boiling surf. As I ran, I pictured the fish. I remember being the fish. I focused as much as anyone can focus with a dozen or so controllers chasing her and shooting. My feet went out from under me. They had shriveled and begun to disappear. I hit the water and got a mouthful of salty foam. I tried to keep my head above water, but my arms were rapidly disappearing. The waves were high around me as I became smaller and smaller. My clothing billowed. The people from the sharing, the controllers, raced to the water's edge. I could see their lights, weirdly distorted as my eyes went from the air-adapted eyes of a human to the eyes of a fish. With what was left of my ears, I heard, "The tracks lead right into the water." Tom's voice, then Chapman's. "I don't see them. They can't swim far. The current is too strong. Fan out up and down the beach." "Do you think these are the Andalite gorillas?" "No, the tracks are human. Just some kids, probably. I doubt they saw anything." That fool should not have been shooting. "Sir," a new voice said, "we found a pair of jeans on the surf. Looks like they could be for a kid. Any identification in them?" "No, nothing." "Coincidence," Chapman said. "Probably." "If they're human, why don't we see them out there?" Tom asked. 4 sets of human tracks? No humans in the water? Is it possible? Is Visser 3 wrong? What if they're not Andalites at all? I sank beneath the water. The morph was almost complete. But as I went under, I heard Chapman laugh cruelly. Visser 3 wrong? Maybe. But I'm not the fool who's going to try and tell him. The morph was complete. I was a fish, less than a foot long. A trout, to be exact. Excellent broiled, fried, or grilled. The salt water was harsh on my scales, and my gills were barely able to breathe. "Everyone okay?" It was Jake. Now that we had morphed, we had the same thought-speech ability as Tobias. "I'm okay," I assured him. "But I can barely breathe. I think we better be quick." "I'm with Cassie," Rachel said. "I feel like my scales are burning up, and my gills are on fire." "Keep the shore to your left and go full speed as long as you can stand it." "Marco, are you with us?" I asked. "Oh, sure. Where else would I be? What could possibly be more fun than running around the sand dunes getting shot at, and then jumping into the ocean and turning to a trout who, incidentally, can't live in salt water? I wouldn't miss it for anything. Now we can go home. Now can we go home and watch TV?